back to an episode of the Open Source Cafe. This is like our 80th something episode, so I'm really excited for this one. And today we have Nir joining us from Ziggy. And today we're going to talk about basically developers, how we can make developers' life easy. I'm not going to give it too much of it away just yet, but before we get into the agenda, I'd like Nir, I'd like to thank you to give your time and come on the show. And would you like to tell our viewers a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Great, Kunal. Thanks for having me. So, my name is Nir, and I started my career 16 years ago as a software developer. Since then, I've moved on to being a team leader, release manager, managing large teams and product used by tens of millions of users. I'm also an agile coach. And I started Ziggy because I realized that as development teams, we all want to be more productive. We all want to work better as a team, but the way that we work doesn't really enable us to be productive. And we could all use much more automation and streamlining the way we all work together.
Amazing. And automation is it's not something that is new. People are doing automation even outside tech quite a lot, helping in day-to-day lives and all these other things. But today we're talking specifically about developers, right? So can you tell us a little bit more about why right now it's high time that developers realize, that they need automation to manage their day-to-day tasks.
Definitely. So if we look at the R&D environment, especially now that we are post-COVID and the way that the world has changed, so look at development teams; they have grown massively, and now we are all also working remotely in different time zones. The product that we are working on actually became much more complicated, and the dependency between all of us has become much more part of our day-to-day job. And the R&D environment itself is even now becoming extremely noisy as we add additional developer tools that are added, and so much noise is added to the way that we work. So we believe that this is exactly the right time to actually reduce the noise and provide personalized guidance to every one of us and a lot more automation.
And speaking on to that point you mentioned about R&D teams, why right now? And what trends you have seen? Because you mentioned you've been working for like over a decade now. So when it comes to R&D teams and now with the popularity of remote work culture, uh, what? Why do you think that right now it's the point of concern for you and the teams that are trying to make it trying to help developers be more productive? And over your experience over over more than a decade, how do you think that it has evolved, and what do you see remote work looks like in the future?
So the revolution is actually just getting started here, because it used to be that we all sat in the same room and communicated among ourselves, and things were a lot more simple. Now, the products are becoming more complicated. We are much more dependent. There are so many additional stakeholders that we interact with, with the new roles of automation and DevOps and other parts that are heavily integrated into the way that we actually work on the. So, it's becoming a much bigger operation, especially as the R&D teams are growing. So that is on the one hand. On the second hand, especially today, with all the macro economics and the downturn that we are currently experiencing, it is much more important for all of us to make sure that we are focusing and working on the right things, that we create a productive environment by streamlining and automating the way we collaborate and perform the handshake between one person to another. And within it, what we see is that most of the solution up to today, and even some that starting off today, really are very focused about, okay, if we want to create a better R&D environment, let's add more analytics, about velocity and who is working more, who is working less. And we definitely don't believe that this is the way and the future for R&D teams. If we want to really create a productive environment, it has to be more about automation and AI, especially for R&D, especially given that what we are actually doing is creative work that is done with so many different personas, with so many dependencies among us. And now in different time zones and all of that. So definitely, as the market shift, as the R&D environment changes, there is a big need to streamline the way we all work and to manage all everything that we need to do on top of coding.
Amazing, and we see a paradigm shift over here. Like, people do have various ways to measure efficiency, be that working hours or be that, like you mentioned, you're an agile coach, or there's this thing like Scrum masters are there and all these other things. So why do you think that there is a need for the paradigm shift right now?
So, it's about, especially these days, about making sure that we are focusing on the right thing. And from my experience doing this type of work for the last 16 years, I was amazed and how much time is wasted on missed priorities and not clear focus, and about all of those tedious tasks that are part of our day-to-day tasks, that an average developers in big companies spend more than 30% of their times in meetings just to do those sync among different stakeholders. And we spend so much time updating Jira and all of those overhead and everything that we need to do on top of what we really care about and what actually moves the needle, which is the creative work and the coding and the innovation that we do as developers. We need to make sure, especially today, especially with a new generation of developers today that are looking for more at the workplace. They are not just looking for a stable job and a steady paycheck. That is something that most of the companies actually offer. They're looking for impact. They're looking for a way to make sure that the work that they are actually doing is something that moves the needle. And within this new environment, the new generation that rightfully so wants to see how they contribute, we can't really focus on measuring productivity and velocity between one sprint and another just to make sure that we are moving on the right course. The way to do it is to make sure that for every person we are really able to reduce all the overhead that is on top of the work that we are actually doing, that we can streamline the way that we work together with different personas that are involved in the different project that we are part of. And not less important is that we do create data on what we are doing, but we are using that to see how can we as developers, as individual contributors, can grow our career and learn from that data on how to do that better. I also believe that if we do a really great job in that, we will also increase the bond between actually the actual companies and us as developers, because at the end of the day we all have the same mission and we join companies based on that. So to see how every day brings us closer to our individual goals, but also to our goals as companies.
Couldn't agree more, because I graduated this year and this is my like first full-time role where when I moved to London and stuff. So definitely there were like quite a few options, but I did consider how much impact I'll be making, and obviously the team and the culture apart from the pay in itself. So I think that's important to also realize for the individual and other individuals and like companies as well. Let's talk a little bit more about it. Like, you talked about the challenges, we talked about why it's important. Can you tell us a little bit more about how Ziggy is addressing these challenges?
So Ziggy is really addressing these challenges by really starting off. We started off with those tedious tasks that are part of our day to day and streamlining them completely and removing the friction from them. So, the way it works is that Ziggy integrates with the tools that I use, with my Jira to understand, what are my tasks, what are my priorities, with my GitHub to understand, my action items and learn my work habits. And we analyze and cross-reference the data from all of those systems to always give me an up-to-date information about what I'm doing right now, what is the next steps, who I need to approach, or how do I move the process forward. So, if I'm just done with creating a pull request, then automatically alerting all my friends and I need their help. Then alerting me in real time when something is ready to move up the ladder, and connecting the way we all work together as a development team. So we really believe that's the true way to accelerate development and giving us a clear focus on always what's waiting for me now and what's the next step. So the way what Ziggy does is really uses all of data from all of those information to provide hands-on help, clear obstacle, and do it all from Slack. Act as a single-stop shop that helps me manage all mundane known coding tasks and connect me with my team because we are building together.
And since you mentioned about it focusing around day-to-day tasks, why did you choose that to be a priority to focus on day-to-day tasks and automation for devs, and why not like as a whole big picture or something?
Because that's, from my experience, that's what actually moves the needle. I was a manager myself, and what I found is that just trying to create charts of plan versus actual and delays didn't really move the needle. The way that I acted with the teams that I interacted with is that I always made sure for every team member that they they have clear focus. They are extremely clear about what they need to do today, what's the impact of their work, and I helped. I gated them from all of the noise around them, and I always told them, listen, if someone comes to you with this or that, send them to me, and you only get instructions from me on how to move on. And by doing those, you could say trivial things about making sure that every team member know exactly what they need to do, why is it important, and how do they contribute. My teams have always achieved, I would say, 30% more of other teams in 30% less time. So that's the reason that we believe that that's the true way to accelerate software development, by providing focus to every persona and helping them manage everything on top of the actual work that they want to do. I can share with you. I'm very happy to share it to you that what we are already seeing today with Ziggy users is that we are actually moving the needle, and we see that we are able to reduce waiting time for colleagues to almost zero. We are reducing cycle time for pull requests and tickets from days and weeks to hours. So we are actually seeing that this manifesto and this theory actually moves the needle in real life and helps us accelerate software development and working as a team in a better and funner way.
Amazing. Well, thanks for sharing, Neer. And you mentioned you have such a huge amount of experience. So can you maybe share from your experience, how it helped you, um, you know, to build Ziggy, basically.
So it was always about the same principles about, and we apply that to everything that we do in Ziggy. Every feature that we think about, we obviously consult with our community of developers, and they've been a tremendous voice and gave us great feedback on how to do it right. But we always care about, okay, does this feature really moves the needle? Does it really help the individual developer have better work processes and automation and a better day? And so that's the North Star of what we are doing, because that's the only way to really move the needle. And the way we see it, that's only the start of the beginning of a revolution of really changing the way that we build software and changing the R&D environment and making it no longer a black box, but data driven in a way that is rewarding for the individual, because this is something that helps them grow on a personal level and connect them with the mission of the companies they work with.
Amazing. Couldn't agree more. And thanks for giving that analogy as well. My last question to you is, what's next for Ziggy? So you talked about like how the future looks like for R&D teams and stuff, but around Ziggy, what are your next plans and what can folks expect?
Well, there's a lot of work remains to be done, but still with the same guidance and the same principles of us starting with something that is really handy on a day-to-day basis. So the first goal is to be the single-stop shop to manage everything. So on top of the current integration that we have, we'll be adding CI/CD integration, A second thing that we are adding is not just being my personal workflow assistant as a single developer, an IC, but connecting me with my entire team. And we love the triangle that we see between developers, QA and automation, and team leaders, and streamline the way they all work together and build together. So these are the next steps for Ziggy over the next few months.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for sharing, Neil, and it was such a pleasure talking to you. And for folks who are watching, please check out the links in the description below. And to get started with Ziggy, we're doing some tutorials on it as well, and we're coming up with some nice Twitter spaces for community discussions as well, because it's all about community, it's all about developers. And really appreciate you giving the time, Neil, and thanks again for joining us on the show. I learned quite a lot, and from your experience, I hope the audience would as well. And folks, again, thanks a lot for joining, for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Bye.
Thanks, Kunal. Thanks for having me. Bye bye.